All right, now that we've finished making all of our panel 1 bag squares, we're going to move on to our panel 2 bag. So again, we're going to pull everything out that's in there. So you should have your 12-inch blocks. There should be 9 of them. You should have your units A1 to A5, 9 of each. And you should have your sashing fabric, again, 9 pieces stacked up together with paper clip together into each section. So what we're going to do is cut our sashing pieces apart first. Again, making sure that your paper here is in the middle of your stack. So you might have to just rearrange your paper a little bit. So we're going to cut these apart. Before we do that, we're just going to place our other pieces up at the top here. So you should have an A5, A4, A3, A2, and A1. You should have 9 papers in each one of those piles. All right, so I'm just gonna use my add a quarter ruler, and as I talked about this when we were doing panel number 1, I use my add a quarter ruler just because it has a lip on it, and it compensates for the thickness of my paper clip, so that when I'm cutting, I'm not wobbling on top of that clip. So I'm going to find cut line number 1, which is right here. So I'm going to put my ruler right on that line. I'm going to grab my cutter, and I'm cutting just right on the line. And here I'm just going to slide my ruler up. I'm going to move this away. Cut line number 2 is the other long one. So again, we're cutting right on the line. And if your blade is sharp, you should not have any issues cutting through 9 pieces of fabric. So cut line number 3. Now we're going to cut line number 4, and same as in panel 1, there's actually 2 cut line number 3, so we'll do the second 3 next. Then we'll do 4, and this is just a scrap piece, so we'll just put that aside. We can use that if we need an extra piece somewhere. Then we're going to do 5. So we're just cutting in numerical order, and you want to cut in numerical order because if you cut out of order, you'll be cutting through a piece that you shouldn't be cutting into. So also, we couldn't clip the sections in the center here, so as you're going, just clip those together. So I'm going to add a clip here. And it works better if you add your clips before you cut, this way your paper doesn't move on you. So we're up to 7. Then we'll do 8. And 9. 11, and your last one should be cut line 12. Okay. So we're just going to put these on the piles that they belong to. So if you look at your paper, it'll tell you the section that it's for, but it'll also say temp A3 or A1 or A2. This one says temp A3, so that I know that belongs with my unit A3. So I'm going to put that one on that guy. And this one is temp A1, so that's going to go on my A1. This one is A3, and this one is A2, A5, pieces that we're going to use for our sashing. So now we're going to move to our blocks. So you have 9 blocks here, and it doesn't matter which one you start with. I'm going to start with my number 2, and I'm just going to put these to the side. So again, remembering that when we put our labels on, we made sure that the numbers were right side up. So you want to make sure that your block is sitting like this, with the number 2 like that. This panel 2 we can take off now because we have this in our panel 2 bag. I'll just put that over here. And for this, again, you don't need a rotating mat to cut this block apart. You can use a mat like I've got here. I just suggest that you situate yourself in a corner of your mat and make sure you can walk around your table that you're on while you're cutting, because we're going to be cutting top and bottom and side, so it just makes it easier instead of having to twist yourself to cut it. I can't walk around my desk, so I'm going to use my rotating mat for this, and I'm just going to put my block on here. And I'm going to pull my pin out of here. You don't want to lose this label because we still need to know that this is block number 2. So I'm going to put this at the top of my rotating mat. This way I know that that's the top of my block, so that if I don't get twisted around. And again, a good thing to do here is to take a picture of your block, so that you have a picture to refer to when you're doing this. I don't have a phone with me to do that right now, so I can't do it today. But we're going to cut anyway. So the first thing we're going to do here is go to our page 4 of our flower through lattice pattern. So this time we're cutting a little bit differently. So if you look at page 1, or page 3, sorry, but block number 1, you can see that the block was situated this way. Our block 2 is situated this way. So just to show you on the quilt, it might make a little more sense. So if you look at, these are the squares that we're building, and each one of these big squares has 4 little blocks in it. So this would be the block that we did yesterday would be this block, and the block that we're doing today is this one. So you can see how this has been rotated a quarter turn to create this block, and that's why we have to cut these all differently without rotating the panel block, but you're rotating the lattice part of it. So just when you're cutting this, it's going to be a little bit different than what we did for your panel 1. So it's not exactly the same. We're going to be using, for this one actually you need a square ruler because we're doing a 9-inch cut. So following your instructions on page number 4 and following what I'm doing here, you're going to be cutting a 9-inch strip off the left side of your block. So you want to make sure you're nice and square here. So I've got my 9-inch line on the left side of my block, and I'm going to cut a 9-inch piece off. So I'm going to grab my cutter, nice and square. So I'm going to cut that. You're going to leave that there, you're not going to move it. And now you're going to cut a 3-inch piece off the top. So I'm just going to rotate this way so I can do that. So I'm doing a 3-inch strip. Again, making sure that you're staying square when you're cutting. So my 3-inch line is on the top of my block, and I'm cutting that like that. So now we're just going to move these 3 pieces away. Thread there. we're just gonna move those away. So now we're going to cut a 6-inch piece off the left side. So now I'm going to put my 6-inch line on the left side of my block. Again, making sure you're square, top, bottom, and left side. And we're going to cut 3 inches. Again, you're not going to move that, you're just going to leave it there. And then we're going to cut a 3-inch piece off the top again. So your 3-inch lines on the top of your block. And again, staying nice and square. So this time, we're going to move the right 2 pieces. So these 2 pieces here, like that. And now we're going to cut a 3-inch piece off the left-hand side. So again, keep it nice and straight. Oops. So we're cutting that. And then we're going to cut a 3-inch piece off the bottom. So this time you're going to put your 3-inch line on the bottom of your block. And we're just going to now move these apart. So these are the blocks that we now have for this one. So now the next thing we're going to do is, again, looking at your page 4 diagram, you see here that there are red lines on these pieces. We're going to mark that side of the block with our paper clips, and that's going to designate the sew side of our block. So I'm going to do that right now. So your pieces should look like they do here. You've got your section 4, your section 5 is over here, your section 1 is these 2, section 3 is these 3, and your section 2 is these 3 down here. So for section 4, your sew side is right here. For section 5, you're going to put your clip on the bottom and on the top of the bottom piece. For section 1, you're going to put the sew side on the right hand side, and for the section 1 piece, you're going to put it on the bottom. And for your section 2, we have a clip on the bottom of that one, and then top of your section 1, and on the left hand side of your section 5. Like that. And your unit 3, we have bottom of section 6, bottom of section 3, and top of section 1. So this is how it should look once you're done putting your clips on. So what I'm going to do now is just move this to the side, and we're going to start sewing our units together. So we're going to need, for unit 1, we're going to need 1 paper. So we're just going to take 1 of those. And we're going to need our sashing pieces. And section 1, or unit 1, sorry, is going to be these 2 pieces right here. So we have 4 sections in this unit. So we're going to start with section 4, which is going to be this one. So you're just going to turn your block so that your sew side is at the top. And then section 3 is a sashing piece, so we're just going to pull 1 of those off the bottom, making sure you stay right side up. And your sew side, again, is at the top. So we're going to put that one on top. Section 2 is another sashing piece, and again your sew side is the long side. So you want to make sure that that is up. Like that. And your section 1 sew side up is like that. So these ones we just needed one piece of each of these, so I'm just going to put these back on my unit A1 pile. Alright, so for the first thing we're going to do is take our section 1, find our line 1, which is right here. So you want that to be up the same side as your clip. And because we're going to be gluing this onto our paper, we don't want to glue the right side to the wrong side of our paper. We're going to glue the wrong side of our fabric. So we're going to just flip it with leaving our clip at the top. So you're just rotating this side to side, not bottom to top. Okay, so we're just flipping it like that. And then you're going to put your paper on this block. So we want to make sure that we see a little bit of fabric at the top and on the right hand side of the paper that we've just put on here. And because our seam allowance line is right here, we see that we're past that on top and on the left hand side, so we're good to go. We're going to grab our glue stick and just put some glue in the center of that section number 1. We're going to remove our clip now, and now we're going to grab our fold template, put that on line number 1, fold the paper up against, tuck your add a quarter ruler in, grab your cutter and trim. So just move your ruler away, slide your template out, keep this folded, turn your unit so that your sew side is up, so that's the side that we just trimmed. We're going to slide our section 2 piece down, sew side at the top, and we're just going to match those 2 sew sides up together. And we've got lots here. I can see I've got fabric on either side of the piece, of my section 1 piece, which is fine. And I'm just going to grab my glue stick and just hit the edges of my fabric so that that's not going to slide by the time I get to my machine. So I'm going to move to my machine and sew on line number 1. So I'm just going to move this over. So again, you want to make sure that you're stitching with a 1.8 stitch length or a 2.0. And again, I've put my open toe back onto my machine. I'm going to start sewing above my line, and I'm just going to sew right off the paper. Cut my thread. Wake up my iron here. Okay, then you're going to take this. I'm just going to cut this thread. And you're just going to press this over. It can only be pressed one way. You're just going to push over your unit and press it down like that. So just press that down. So once you're pressed, you're going to come back to your cutting mat and you're going to find line number 2. So line number 2 is right here. So I'm going to put my fold template on that line. I'm going to bring up paper and fabric this time against my fold template because I have to sew from here down for my first line. So I'm just going to fold all of that over. Left hand's going to hold the paper, right hand's going to grab the fabric where the 2 fabrics are meeting, just pinch it together and just rip it off the paper like that. If you do break the paper or tear the paper, it's fine, it doesn't matter. So just tuck your ruler back in here and trim this off. Again, slide your ruler away, move your template out, Again, rotate your piece so that your sew side is at the top. Keep your paper folded. Slide section 3 down. And again, we're just centering our paper onto this piece. We've got lots here and we have some past the left side. And we're just going to, again, just glue the edges so that it doesn't move by the time we get to our machine. So we're just going to open this up and we're going to go sew on line number 2. So line number 2 goes straight across the paper, so we're just going to start sewing above the paper and just sew right off the bottom. So again, we're just going to go and press this. To our cutting mat and find line number 3. So line number 3 doesn't have any stitching crossing it, so we don't have to worry about the fabric. We're just going to fold the paper over, tuck our ruler in, and trim that. Again, move your ruler away, take your template out, rotate this so your sew side is at the top. Bring down your section 4. And you're just going to put, making sure your paper is right on the edge of your fabric here. You can see that it's right in line with my paper. You don't have a lot of wiggle room here. So make sure your outside lines right here and right here are on top of the fabric. And I can see that. I can see my line through my paper and I'm on top of the piece that I'm adding. So again, just hit the edges of your fabric. You're going to open this up and now we're going to sew on line number 3. And again, this one goes right across your paper, so I'm just going to start at the top of my paper and sew right off. I'm going to quick press that one over. So section number 1 is done. So I'm just going to put that right there. And I'm going to now move on to section number 2. So I'm just going to take one of these papers. So we need one of the papers. We're going to need the 2 pieces of sashing that were on top of that. And again, we're going to look at our paper. This one has 5 sections on it. So we're going to start with section number 5. Which is going to be this piece. So we're going to take that. We're going to bring our sew side to the top. Section 4 is also one of these. It's this guy right here. So we're going to take that one, stack it on top of section 5, again with your clip at the top because that's your sew side. Section 3 is a sashing piece. Your sew side's on the long side, so we want to make sure that that's at the top when you're stacking it. And section 2 is also a sashing piece, and it as well has the sew side on the long side right here. So that's going to go like that, and these will just go back on top of the unit A2 pile. And your section 1 is another block piece. And again, you want to make sure that you have your sew side at the top. So now we're ready to sew. We're going to grab our paper, and again, we're going to find line number 1. So that's right here. So you want to make sure your line 1 is at the top. Same as your sew side. We're going to slide this down. It's going to go right here. But again, we're just going to rotate this from side to side so that the wrong side is up. Sew side's at the top. And you're going to put your paper on top. So we're gluing the wrong side of our paper to the wrong side of our fabric. So you just want to see a little bit of fabric here on either side, bottom and right hand side of your paper. And we're going to glue that. And I'm going to remove that clip at this point. And I'm just going to fold this over and just glue right in the center of it. Bring this back down. And now we're ready to trim on line number 1. So we're just going to put our fold template on line number 1. Tuck our ruler in and trim. Move our ruler away, keep this folded, slip our template out, make sure the sew side's at the top, bring section 2 down, and you're just going to center that on here. And actually you just want a little bit on the right hand side, so we'll move it more to the right. And then we're going to again take our glue stick, just hit the edges of our fabric and glue that together. And we're going to go sew on line number 1. So again, I'm going to start sewing above my line and I'll just sew right off the paper. So we're going to just go and press that over. And then you'll bring your unit back to your cutting mat and we're going to move to line number 2. And I'm just going to cut this piece off here. So line number 2 is right here, and you can see we've stitched across 2 because we're creating a corner. So you're going to bring paper and fabric up. With your left hand, hold your paper. With your right hand, grab the fabric where they meet, pinch it together, and just rip it off. So you can see here I've torn my paper. It doesn't matter, that part's been sewn. I'm just going to tuck my ruler in and trim. Move my ruler away, take my template out, making sure my sew side's at the top, bring down section number 3, and we're going to add that piece on. And then again, just make sure that there's a little bit of your sashing piece on past your paper, and we're just going to glue that together. And we're going to sew on line number 2. So now I'm going to start at the off to my paper, and I'm just going to sew past my line number 2. So my line number 2 goes all the way into this section here. So people always ask me, why do I sew past the line? I do that so that when I trim my next line, I'm actually trimming my threads at the same time, so I don't have big threads hanging around on my unit when I'm done. So I'm going to bring this over here. So again, I'm starting off my paper. And I sewed past line number 2, and I'm just going to press that one over. So I'm going to bring my unit back here. I'm going to find line number 3. So you can see here, and I've exaggerated it because I went way past my line, just to show you. When I put my fold template down, I'm going to bring paper and fabric up, and I'm just going to rip this off. So you can see here when I put my ruler down that they're stitching past my ruler. So when I trim this, I'm trimming my thread right nice and neat with my fabric. So I'm just going to trim that, move my ruler away, rotate this to the top, bring my template down, bring down my section number 4. So this one here is going to be tight. So you want to make sure that when you look at this line and this line need to be on top of the fabric piece that you're adding. So that needs to be right to the edge of the fabric on this side, and this side is fine too. So you just have a little bit of wiggle room here, not a lot. So I'm just going to glue that so it doesn't move. And come back to my machine. And again, I'm going to start sewing above line number 3. And I'll sew right off my paper. And then we'll press that one over. And now we're going to line number 4. And again, you can see I've stitched past my 3 so that I can trim that thread at the same time. So just grab those 2 fabrics where they meet and just rip it off. Tuck your ruler in and trim. Move your ruler away, rotate this to the top, move your template down, move your section number 5 fabric down, we'll take that off. And this one you can see you've got fabric on either side of the paper, so it's not so tight. So I'm just going to line up my top, and again just hit the top edges of my fabric, line up my fabric, and now I'm just going to sew on line number 4. And this one just goes right across the paper, so I'm going to sew from the top of my paper and right off the bottom. Okay, and I'm just going to press that over. So that's going to be your block number 2. Block number 1 goes like that. Now we're going to move to block number 3. So we're going to grab, there's 3 sashing pieces for that one. And we're going to take one of these papers. So this is the piece that we have to make that modification for the line numbers. So your line number 3 should actually be line number 4, and your line number 4 should be line number 3. That was just a misprint on the paper. So make sure that you change all of your A3 numbers. Make that change on all 9 of them in this bag. You'll have to do the same thing as well for your panel 3 and panel 4 bags. So we'll do that as we're going. Okay, so we're going to take our fabrics. This one has 6 sections to it. So we're going to find section number 6, which is this piece right here. So you're going to put that one with the sew side up so your clip is up. Section 5 is a sashing piece, and again your long side's your sew side. So we're just going to pull one of those off, put it right side up, put this back on your A3 pile. Then section 4 is also a sashing piece. So we're going to take that off. And again, the sew side's the long side. So we're just going to put that like that. Your section 3 is a block piece. That's this one here. Sew side is up. And then we need section 2, which is a sashing piece. Again, your long side is your sew side. We're just going to grab one of those, put it right side up, put this back onto your A3 pile, and grab our last piece, section 1, making sure your sew side is up. So we're going to find section 1 line 1 is right here at the top, so make sure it's at the top. You're going to slide this down. So sew side up here, line 1 up here. We're just going to flip this side to side, remove the clip, and we're going to put your fabric underneath section 1. Again, making sure that you just have a little bit of fabric on the right hand and the bottom side of your paper. And we're going to just turn this over and just glue right in the center of section number 1. And then just glue that on like that. So now we're going to take our full template, put it on line number 1, fold against the template, tuck your ruler in so the lip's tucked in, trim, move your ruler away, make sure you're rotated so your sew side's at the top, move your template out of the way, bring down section number 2, and we're just going to line up our sew sides. And this piece is from right here to right here, so we have, as long as you have a little bit showing on the right hand side of your paper, you should be good to go. I'm just going to show that there to you. So just, you can just see a little bit of blue here. I'm going to line that up, and then I'm just going to glue those 2 edges together. Oops. And then I'm just going to go sew on line number 1. So again, I'm sewing above the line, and I'm just going to sew right off my paper. And I'm just going to go and press this over. Back to my table. So now we're moving on to line number 2. So I'm just going to fold this against my template, tuck my ruler in, and then I'm going to move my ruler away, rotate this to the top, slide section 3 down, remove my clip, line up my 2 sew sides. So this section, again, you just want to make sure you have a little bit on this side. We've got lots of room here because you just need to cover from here to here. So we're just going to line up the top, and I'm just going to glue. Oops. Just like that. Now I'm going to sew on line number 2. And again, starting above line number 2. And I sewed right off the paper. So I'm just going to go and press that one over. Now we're going to find line number 3, which is this long line here. So I'm just going to put my template on line number 3. So we've got 2 stitch lines coming across this piece. So you're going to grab fabric and template and paper, sorry. With your left hand, hang on to your paper. With your right hand, kind of grab that whole area and just rip it off your paper. Let's move these big threads out of the way so they're going to come off with the trim. So I'm just going to tuck this in, trim that off, move my ruler away, rotate this to the top, move my template down, bring your section or piece number 4 down, section 4. And this one has lots here, so you can just center this and then just, for these longer pieces, it makes a big difference when you're gluing, so they definitely don't shift by the time you get down to the bottom. on line number 3. So starting above my paper, and I'm just going to sew past it at the other end. So I'm just going to press that piece over. So line number 4 is this one. So again, I've got one seam coming across that one, so I'm just going to bring up paper and fabric, grab it where they join, and just rip it off. Tuck my ruler in, trim, move my ruler away, rotate this to the top, move my template down, bring your section or piece number 5 down. And here again, we've got lots. I'm just centering this on. Grab your glue, just hit the edges. Line up your edges. And we're going to sew on line number 4. And this one's going right across the paper, so I'm just going to start above my paper and sew right off my paper at the bottom. Put your full template on line number 5. This one has no stitching across it, so you just need to fold the paper over. Tuck the ruler in, trim, move your ruler away, rotate this to the top, bring your template down, bring section 6 down, and you're just going to, so this one too, you want to make sure that your fabric is underneath the paper that's folded over, because you want to make sure you've got fabric from here to here. So this one too is very tight. So you'll have the edge of your fabric should be right near that, the lines on the left and on the right hand side. We're going to put that together, and now we're going to sew on line number 5. And this one too is going from the top right across the paper, so sewing above the paper, right off the bottom. Okay, so we've got section number 3 is done, or unit number 3 is done. That's going right here, and you can see here that we're forming the petal of our block so that we know that we're sitting the right way. So unit number 4, we have 2 sashing pieces. We're going to need 1 paper, so I'm just going to grab that paper. So section 3, again, your sew sides across the long side, so we're just going to grab one of those. Long side up, put the rest on my pile. Section 2 as well, long side is your sew side, so we're just going to grab one of those and put this on the remainder of A3 pile. And then your section number 1 for unit A4 is this long piece here, and your sew side is right there. So we're going to find line number 1 right here at the top. So you want to make sure it's at the top. We're going to slide this down, section number 1, and we're just going to flip it from side to side so it's upside down. So line 1's at the top, your sew side's at the top. We're going to remove the clip, and we're just going to center this on that piece. So you want to make sure you have from here to here on top of your fabric. So we're just going to take this, and we're just going to put some glue on here. And glue this on. And now we're going to put our full template on line number 1. fold, tuck your ruler in, and trim. Move your ruler away, keep this folded, move your template out of the way, bring down section number 2, and again, you just want to center this on here, making sure there's fabric on either side of your paper. And then we're just going to glue the edges so this won't move. So you can see here again with the glue, I'm not putting glue where I'm actually sewing. It's just on the very edge of my fabric. So I'm going to go and sew line number 1. So this one's going the full length of my paper, so I'm just going to start the top of my paper and I'm just going to sew right off. So I'm just going to go and press that one over. Come back to my table and find line number 2, which is on the other side. So again, there's no stitching here, so I'm just folding my paper against my template, tuck my ruler in, trim, move my ruler away, make sure my sew side's at the top, move my template down, move my section 3 down. We're just going, again, just going to make sure we've got fabric on either side. There's lots here. And again, I'm just going to glue my edges together. Just like that. This one too, this line runs from top to bottom, so I'm just going to sew above my paper to right off my paper. And I'm just going to press that one over. So section 4 is done. It goes up there. Now we're going to move on to section 5, or unit A5. So this one has 4 sashing pieces. So we're going to need one of these. And this one has 6 sections, so we're going to start with section number 6, which is one of these long ones. So we're going to grab one of those. Up here, your sew side is a long side, so it needs to go like this. This can go back on your pile. Section 5 is also a long piece. We're going to take one of those. Just put it like that. Put it back on your pile. Section 4 is also a sashing piece, and it's the long side as well. So we're going to pull one of those and put it on top like that. Section 3 is this little guy up here, and the sew side is up. Section 2 is a sashing piece, sew side up, so long side again. Put it like that. Put this back on the pile. And section 1, your sew side is a short side, so it's going to go like that. So if you grab your unit A5 paper, you want to find line number 1, so it's right here. So at the top, sew side's at the top, so we're going to bring this down, and again, you're just going to flip this side to side and put this on here. So again, you've got lots of room for this one, so just center it on there. You want to make sure you've got fabric on either side of these lines. So you can just center that and then just glue in the center of section number 5. So I'm just going to go like that. Okay, so then we're going to put our full template on line number 1 and fold. Then we're going to trim. Move your ruler away. Rotate this so your sew side's at the top. Move your template out. Bring down section number 2. And we're just going to make sure we have, so this sashing's in the center of your piece, so just make sure you're centered like that, and then you're going to just glue your edges together. Oops. And we're going to sew on line number 1. So I'm sewing above line number 1, and I'm finishing 2 or 3 stitches past it. So I'm just going to press that over. So we'll come back to our mat and find line number 2. Fold the paper against the template, tuck the ruler in, and trim. Move your ruler away, rotate this so your sew side's at the top, move your full template down, take section 3, and line up your sew sides. And again, you want to make sure you've got fabric on either side of these broken lines, which we do. So I'm just going to line up my sides, glue them together, and now I'm sewing on line number 2. So again, I'm starting above, and I'm sewing just past. That over. So now we want line number 4, or line number 3, sorry, which is at the top here. Fold your paper against your template, tuck your ruler in, move your ruler away, keep this folded, bring down section number 4. And again, if you just center this on here, you'll have lots of room. And we're just going to fold or glue your edges together. And we're going to sew on line number 3. We're going to move on to line number 4, which is one of these long ones. So we're going to put our full template on that line. So you can see here we've stitched across this one. So you're going to bring fabric and paper over, grab where they're joining, and just rip it off the paper in those 2 spots. And you can see here I've ripped some of my paper, which is totally fine. Just tuck your ruler in against your template and trim. Move your ruler away, turn this so your sew side's at the top, move your template down, we'll slide section 5 down, and you just want to make sure your paper is fully on this piece. So I've got room on either side here, and then we're just going to glue our edges together. we're sewing on line number 4. So this one goes all the way through the paper, so I'm starting above my paper and I'm going to sew right off. Just pressing that over. So now we're moving on to line number 5. So same thing, we're going to have 3 spots here where we've stitched into this section. So we're just going to bring paper and fabric up. I'm just going to grab where those 3 fabrics meet and just rip that off. Then grab this section and do the same thing. Ruler and tuck this in. So you can see here I'm going to be trimming off all those long threads as I'm trimming off my fabric. Okay, move your ruler away, rotate this so your sew side's at the top, and we're just going to put this on top of our last section, section number 6. And again, you just want to make sure your paper's fully on top of this piece. And we're just going to glue our edges together. And we're going to sew on line number 5. And again, right from the top of your paper, right off your paper at the bottom. This one goes over here. So if you've taken a picture of your block, which we strongly recommend that you do, you can make sure that your block is still looking like the picture that you've taken at this point. Now we're ready to do the assembly, but before we do that, we're going to trim our blocks. So you're just going to take one block at a time, and we're going to be trimming on the very outside line of each unit. So very outside line. So you put your ruler on, and you just need a straight edge for this. It doesn't have to be any specific ruler. I'm just using my 1/4 ruler because it's right handy here. The trimming usually I do right at the end, like I've done here. I'll sew all my units first. The reason I do that is so that my seams don't unravel. Which in this case, if you're doing a block right away, it won't. But if you're doing another pattern and you're trimming as you go and it's taking you a bit of time to get the panel done or the project done, your seams will unravel. So trimming is the last thing I do just before the assembly. Alright, so this is going to be unit A2. That goes like that. And then unit A1. Okay, so same as we did for our panel 1 bag, we're going to start sewing. I'm just gonna clean this up a little bit here. These fold templates are great for scooping up all your fabric. So I'm going back to my Chinese lattice pattern on page number 7, and there again it has the assembly of the blocks. They're assembled all the same, it's just that they're rotated to sit differently in your quilt. So we're going to be sewing in numerical order, so you're going to be sewing A1 to A2, then we'll sew that to A3, and then we'll sew that to A4, and on to A5 to create our block. So we've got A1 is right here, A2 is right here, so we're just going to flip A1 onto A2 like that, and we're going to go sew. And at this point, don't forget to remove your open-toed foot and put your 1/4 inch foot back on. So we're going to, so you're just lining up your edges. If you look at your diagram, there's little arrows that indicate what unit you're pressing to. So this one says we're pressing to unit number 2. So you want your number 2 on top when you're pressing, so that when you bring it over, it's up against unit number 2. So we've got 1 and 2 like that. Then we're going to bring 3. 3 goes on to unit 1 and 2, and again you're just lining up your edges. And you want to make sure your seams don't flip as you're sewing here. Now we're pressing to 3, so again make sure your unit 3 is on top. Also, when you're putting this one on, you want to make sure that you're lining up your lattices here. You don't want a big shift in here between these 2 pieces. Number 4, there's nothing to match up, so we're just going to flip this one on like that. Again, we're matching up our sides, and we're going to sew that together. And you're noticing here I've left my paper on. You don't have to, you can. I'm just leaving it on just for time's sake right now, and also I don't mind leaving it on. I find it just keeps the distortion out of my pieces, so nothing's going to shift on me. Again, make sure you're not flipping any seams as you're sewing here. And again, we're going to be sewing to, pressing to unit number 4. So 4 should be on top when you're pressing. And you're just going to press over. Then we're going to sew 5 on. So here you're lining up some lattice over here. Again, we're pressing to unit A5. So here we have our block. So again, you want to make sure that your block's laying the right way. So this is the way that it should be sitting. It should be the exact same as on your paper. So you have this little block at the top, your 2 long pieces here, and this is block number 2. And I will also write it on here, block 2, and that's right side up. So you're going to do the same thing with the remainder of the blocks in your panel 2 bag. I'm going to go do the same, and then I'll be right back.